It's like the Hunger Games.
Did Mary Ellen Green?
Nampa High was here this morning. Well,
I'm here
now too.
Oh!
Nampa High is represented twice. That's all. Skyview is
I'm the rowdy counselor.
And you were Stephanie. She sent me a billion emails about your college process.
Oh, yes.
It sounds like
true, huh?
Really.
We were excited. I think it was fun. So, yeah. No, I'm the rowdy counselor.
Okay.
I'm a sophomore.
That's good to know.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'll sing to you. I want to sing to you. The kids are always like, leave me alone.
Cool. So, thank
Okay.
you guys for coming. We're going to get started, and we are being recorded, so if you have objections to that, I guess.
tough.
Sorry. Go outside and call me on the phone. Is there anybody on the line? Hello? I don't think there's...
Jeannie Bouchine.
Oh, hi. How are you guys? So, Jeannie...
Cindy Grosslandis.
Hi, how are you guys out in Meridian?
Good.
So, do you guys have your desktops in front of you? Because you might want to go to the... Okay, so the Cash for College... Idaho.com site, it will have all the documents on there, unless she sent them to you. But if you have questions, just...
We have them.
Okay, so just chime in. If you have questions, let us know that you're here. I'm Julie Boo. I'm the director of the Boise State TRIO Educational Talent Search Programs, which are the pre-college programs. We have 10 programs now at Boise State from our programs. Mike is the Upward Bound Assistant Director. We have 4 Upward Bounds and 2 talent searches, which means we serve about 23 schools. We also have student support program for college students, which I will put a plug into all of you. We have a program now that will serve only students who want to become teachers, and they actually can match the Pell Grant sometimes. So if you have kids who are interested in teaching, that's going to be an opportunity starting now. And then there's also a McNair program. These are all TRIO programs that helps kids who want to go to graduate school. Some stay at BSU, but a lot are going to other bigger institutions. So, and then there's a veterans program too. And today, though, my role is with TVEP, and my colleagues here will introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about TVEP. But thank you for coming. We are being recorded, and then this will be available to your colleagues. And the resources are open and free use, so welcome.
Yeah, I'm Kathy Purin. I'm the college career counselor at CUNA High School. And I have been with TVEP from the very beginning, and I think it's been 5 years now. Okay, 5 years. I feel pretty passionate about TVEP. I think they do very good work. And I guess I'll hand it over to Jenny.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Kimball. I'm the College and Career Counselor at Columbia High School, and I also serve on TVEP. And I'll give you a brief history in just a minute about how this whole Cash for College Idaho got started and why we're doing this training. But we thought we would start, if everybody wouldn't mind, just saying your name and what organization you're with, and then we'll just know everyone who's here. And we do want this to be informal. It is going to be a lot of us talking, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask. So, Dana, do you mind if I start with you?
No, that's fine. I'm Dana Kelly, and I'm the Student Affairs Program Manager for the Idaho State Board of Education, and support TVEP where possible and try to work with the linkages with the college application campaign.
Hello, I'm Yvette Melvas, and I am a counselor at Nampa High School in Nampa. Yay. Just easy. All right.
I'm Allie Crane. I am the Director of Enrollment Services for ISU Meridian. But I'm here as serving as I'm the co-chair for the goal area 4 for TVEP, which is part of this, and this is our primary, I think, plan and goal, and so I'm here in that role today.
My name is Dana Godet. I work in admissions at Idaho State University, and I'm just here to learn more about how to help my kids get money.
My name is Heidi Freeney, and I'm a counselor at Renaissance High School.
My name is Carol Joplin, and I'm a counselor at Centennial High School.
I'm Kelly Paz, I'm a counselor at Renaissance High School.
And I'm Michael Rupp. I'm with TRIO Upward Bound at Boise State University.
Okay.
Awesome. And I think we have Jeannie and Cindy on the phone as well. Welcome.
Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Thanks.
So, okay. You're both Meridian. Cindy, you're at Meridian High, right?
Correct. That is correct.
And engineer in the district office, right? Okay.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for giving your time today. We know how difficult it is personally to get away from the building for 2 hours. So we really hope that you find this training beneficial and that it's useful for you. The way this all came about, Treasure Valley Education Partnership has 4 working groups, for goals that they're working on. And our group is focused on post-secondary enrollment and completion for the state of Idaho. And so one of the things that we discussed this year was how do we do something similar to College Application Week, but centered around the FAFSA. We know that across the state and across our valley, high schools are already engaging in financial aid nights and FAFSA efforts. However, we thought, what if we make this a big deal, kind of like we've done with College Application Week, and we focus on a school-wide goal that we're all going to rally around? Would we see an increase in FAFSA completion? And so that's kind of how this came about. And so our focus today is to go over a couple of things. The first thing we're going to do is go through this toolkit, which if you're here, you have it in front of you. And it's also on the Cash for College Idaho website. So if you ever want to download it or print things off, you can go to the website and the full toolkit is there. We're not going to go through it page by page, but we want to highlight some important resources that you can use within the toolkit. We're also going to talk about a timeline, a sample timeline for planning a FAFSA event at your school, which I know many of you have already done, but we'll talk a little bit more about this shift this year in creating a school-wide goal and how you might want to implement that at your school. And then Julie will talk about her financial aid PowerPoint presentation that she's spent a lot of time on that will be really useful in answering a lot of the frequently asked questions that we get from parents and students when it comes to actually completing the FAFSA and some of those forms that come after the FAFSA. So, and then I think that Joy Miller hopefully will join us again. She's with the State Board of Ed in the scholarship department, and she's going to come and talk to us a little bit about the Opportunity Scholarship and some other updates on that end. So that's our agenda today. Again, thanks for coming, and we will jump in.
We're going to start on page 5, so if everybody wants to turn to page 5, and we'll just kind of start discussing. This whole page is, to me, is somewhat the shift in the word college. So when I first started 9 years ago at CUNA High School, when people said college, that usually meant a 4-year college, and then along comes CWI or a 2-year college. What TVEP is saying, and the Go On folks even, college can mean many different things. So college might be you're going to Paul Mitchell. College might be you're going to the Lineman College. College might mean you're doing a welding program at CWI, or that you're going to Boise State to become an engineer, or ISU to become an RN. So that is the signal, the message we want to send to kids is that college can be lots of different things depending on what your needs are and your passions are. And I'm not going to go over the different types, the certificate programs. I'm pretty sure we all know about those types of things. But I just wanted to reiterate that all TVEP and the Go On, they want kids to understand that just because you are not going to go to a Boise State or a Harvard or wherever, you are going on to post-high school training. And that's why you'll see it, post-high school training, referred to instead of necessarily college nowadays. The next page, financial aid at a glance. We're not going to spend too much time on that because I think everyone here knows and understands what loans are, what state aid is, and the work-study programs. If you aren't familiar with the work-study programs, the only interesting thing about those is you actually work and you get paid. So you don't get the money up front. And a lot of times kids will say, well, I need that money up front to help pay the tuition bill. Work-study just does not work that way. So you get the money in a paycheck as you go through the program. Next section is planning and implementing a FAFSA campaign.
So we wanted to provide a sample timeline and checklist for implementing a financial campaign. I think we want to kind of shift from hosting a FAFSA night to implementing a FAFSA campaign, like making it, realizing that it's not just one night we help people do the FAFSA, it's like one semester. We help students get through the financial aid process because it really is a process. And so this sample timeline and checklist is recommended. It's a sample. It doesn't have to be followed to the T, but it's just something that we wanted to give as a guideline. So starting out now in December, it's crazy that we're already just a few weeks away from winter break. But you can check the first two off your list. You're here at the training and you're reviewing the manual, so good job, completed.
2 down.
Yes, I know. And then we thought that by December 17th, which is right before we leave for winter break, what we recommend is at your site with your team, whether that's your counseling department or your team that you've established at your site, that you map out a plan for what you want your campaign to look like. What will it include? Will it include just one parent night? Will it include a day during school that you're hosting an event? Will it include multiple days? We just encourage you to get together with your team before winter break and map out what your campaign will look like, and we'll give you some more information about that as we go along. But by winter break, we'd like you to consider doing that. We'd also like to encourage you, before you leave for winter break, to set some of those dates. So if you do know you're going to host an event in the evening or an event where you will need help to provide help for students doing the FAFSA, that you reach out to some of those financial aid offices at Boise State, CWI, NNU, College of Idaho, some of our local colleges. Reach out to those financial aid offices and request a financial aid officer to come to your event. I know I was looking through this checklist last night and it prompted me to reach out and do that very thing. And that's just so because those financial aid offices get hit pretty hard to help people all around the valley. And so if you can get your date out there and have a financial aid officer come to your event, they are the experts in this area. They will be so helpful to you and your families. So we recommend doing that, as well as reserving your computer labs at your school if you plan to do an evening event or a daytime event. We all know how hard it can be to get computer space, so definitely reserve those labs. And then also by winter break, and this is a big shift this year, is that we are asking schools to come up with a school-wide goal, and that would be a completion goal. And we're going to talk more about how to set that goal in a minute, but sometimes when you put a goal out there and you just put a number out there, it helps students rally around that idea of this goal that we want to reach and this thing that we're doing together to achieve a goal. So you and your team will establish a goal and then promote that goal and get it out to your student body, hopefully once you get back from Christmas break. So those are your tasks in December.
Right, and we should mention that we did have some page issues. We got this yesterday and realized there's a couple of glitches. So on December 17th, it says see page 17 for instructions. Would you cross that out and put 10? It's actually on page 10. So I don't want you to try to find it on page 17 and it's not there. So in January, obviously for this year anyway, FAFSA is available online January 1st, and the Cash for College campaign begins January 4th. That's when you really start gearing up for FAFSA information. January 4th, we would suggest, that you start planning on some kind of a presentation. And by the way, instead of saying see page 20 for information, that should say page 12 for information. And everybody has their own method of presentation. We do know that the higher FAFSA completion rate you have, the more students you actually do have going on to post-high school. in my 9 years, this is a huge factor into how many go. So if my FAFSA rates are fairly high for us, then I have a lot of more students going on. This last year, my FAFSA rates were down, and I actually had less students going on to post-secondary. A lot of schools had a decrease last year in their FAFSA completion rates, and I'm not sure exactly what that was. Maybe because the economy's better. Okay, and kids are thinking they can just go out and get a high school diploma and go on and be merry. But anyway, so we are trying to reverse that for next year. We'll talk a little bit more about the presentation and some ideas on some presentations you could do, and then you can go from there. January 10th, okay, we would like you to start reaching out to the media sources and to your parents. So instead of page 34, it'll be page 51. We have provided you, because we're trying to make this very easy, we have provided you a template, okay, for a sample press release that you could actually just fill in your school's name and send it off to your local newspaper. And then on the back side of that is a family informative letter that you could send out to your through your distribution list, or we have Peach Jar at CUNA High School, so I will send this out through Peach Jar, so that parents just brings up the idea that FAFSA is happening, and we are going to start working on that. January 15th. We would like you to submit your data use agreement, and it is on page 68. However, Andy always sends it out usually through the email. So there's probably a good opportunity that you won't have to do this, that he will just send it out to you and you'll fill it out and send it back into him. But if you don't get that email by that date of January 15th, I would go ahead and complete this one and send it in to him. And what this does is it gives him permission to send you information on each one of your students and if they have completed the FAFSA, excuse me. So you can see that would be really helpful, because then you can start targeting the students that haven't completed the FAFSA.
Kathy,
yes.
do all, if students aren't, I mean, not students, schools that may not be part of the specific TVEP, can they still participate in this? Okay.
Right.
I asked for you guys.
Yeah. And I'm just going to tell you, do not get frustrated, because last year I had some difficulties getting the data through. And Andy's really good about, okay, I didn't get that. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm not particularly tech savvy. And he would like, okay, do this, do that, called me on the phone. So he will make it work. You just have to be patient. Okay? Then in February, you're going to start measuring your goal. And we will talk about how you even set your goal here and some ways to measure your goal. And then, obviously, February 15th is priority deadline for most Idaho schools that are 4 years. We get into March, the Idaho Opportunity Scholarship, which Joy hopefully will talk about. If not, we'll
She is coming.
Okay, very good. We will talk about that, but the deadline for that is March 1st. And then March 2nd, you're going to measure your progress towards your FAFSA completion goal. Okay? And there again, see page 17 for instructions. It should be page 10 for instructions. And then March 15th, review school FAFSA information and begin following up with students who have not completed the FAFSA.
Awesome. And then in April, again, this is that whole shift that we're asking people to make, is to consider this a financial aid process, that it's going to be all semester. That in April, you'll continue to measure your progress, continue to see how many students have completed the FAFSA, and to continue to put that out there to your student body and to your community. And it's really important that you think about April being like tax time, that this is when a lot of families will complete their 2015 taxes. Many students will do it well before that. But we know that students can submit their FAFSA with 2014 tax information. If they do that, they're going to need to go back and make corrections to their FAFSA with their new tax information. I know many of us have probably used the IRS data retrieval tool to help students do that. If not, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the program today. But that's a really great way. But we just need to remind students that if they completed their FAFSA back in January with 2014 information, in April, once their taxes have been filed, they need to go back and make corrections. Otherwise, their FAFSA will not be correct and they won't get their financial aid. So keep that in mind. And then officially, April 30th is when the Cash for College Idaho campaign will end. And if you can just keep track of your progress, keep track of your best practices, and even if you're not a TVEP participating school, we would love your feedback as far as did your school reach your goal? If so, how did you do it? If not, what do you think happened? And any best practices that you want to share with us would be helpful. That's the whole point of TVEP, really, is to share and collaborate. And if one school is doing something really well, we want to share that so that hopefully other schools can replicate that and more students can be successful. So that's kind of a sample timeline and checklist. Use that in your planning, and hopefully that's helpful as a guide to you. So we'll go ahead and start with the first step, which is really going to be to rally around this big goal for your school.
So, to set a goal for your school, it is very helpful if, number one, you take the time to have students invest in what kind of goal that they think you should set, and number two, what kind of things are going to motivate them. Because what I've learned is every school is totally different. The first two FAFSA events we've had for TVEP, we centered around FAFSA Frenzy, and the winning school got a day at Wahoo's, okay? And before we did this, I was all gung-ho. Okay, this is going to work. This is going to motivate them. Well, guess what? It didn't motivate them. So I think every school is different. Last year, I was a go-on school, and I bought lots of big prizes like refrigerators, Bed Bath & Beyond gift cards, etc. That did not motivate them. Okay, so I think you have to ask your particular seniors that year, okay, what is going to motivate you? Obviously, they should be doing this intrinsically on their own, but for some of them, they really need to be motivated. So having said that, how are you going to set your goal? Well, the first way is you're going to think about what types of completion rates have you had in the last 3 years. And we have provided a website there that you can go on, and it will give you your completion rates for the last 3 years. So you want to take that into consideration. So for instance, if you're at 40%, you wouldn't want to try to guess that your goal is going to be 80%, because that would probably be very positive but very unrealistic. And my first year coming in, I thought, well, we can do 80%. Well, it's not as easy as it looks. So take that into consideration. Then the next step is you have to determine how many seniors you have. And you can do that by, well, you probably know how many seniors you have, but you can get on this next website and they will tell you, according to the state, how many seniors you have. Now, I did something different this year when I set my goal, is I took into consideration all those students who it would not be appropriate for them to fill out a FAFSA. So everybody has students in their school who will not be going on to post-high school training. Their circumstances are they just will not. And so that was about 15 out of my 282. So I took them off the table, and I got down to I think it's 264. And then I set a goal of 60% for CUNA High School and figured out how many students we had to get in order to fill out the FAFSA to reach our 60% goal. I think that's a very fair way to do it instead of taking your total population. So for some schools that might not be an issue, but I know for CUNA it was an issue. And when I got thinking about it, I thought, well, that's not really right to include those students when they are not going to be filling out the FAFSA. So that's how we set our goal. And Jenny.
And I'll just piggyback on that. So when I looked at my goal as well, in Power School, I look up how many seniors I have. And for me, I know I have some seniors in Power School, and I'm using air quotes for those who can't see me, who are classified as seniors but will not be graduating this year just based on the number of credits that they have, and they know that maybe next semester or another year. So I would subtract out those students, and I would also talk to my special education teachers to find out which ones of these students should we have participate, just like I did in College Application Week. So those are conversations to have with your special education coordinators and teachers, is who should be applying to college, who should be filling out a FAFSA, and those who obviously are maybe more in the severe special education programs may not be, you don't want to count them in your overall goal. So definitely subtract those out. I'll tell you, for our last 3 years, we had 41% in 2013 of our student body submit FAFSA or complete the FAFSA. We dropped to 33% in 2014, and then last year we had 45% submit. So, and we are also setting a goal of 60%, and that's just based on the number of students we had apply during College Application Week, and that was something my team, we came together and we decided this is a challenging goal, but we also think it's a realistic goal. And so that for us is 165 seniors. And so I think when you break it down in numbers like that, especially for students, it's helpful to say we need 165 of us to do this. And they will rally around that, I think. So, so how do we do this? How do we make it fun? How do we implement some of these ideas? So we just wanted to give you guys a couple of ideas that we found or that we've tried. Again, this is going to be totally based on you and your school. You know your population, but these are just some fun ideas to try. So one thing is to measure your progress creatively. If you guys can all see the cute little thermometer up in the top. We actually did this during College Application Week. We made a big one and put it right next to the computer lab where we were applying for college. And it really did. I was actually so surprised how many students were like, how many do we have left, Miss Kimball? How many more do we need to go? They were really, just that visual, seeing it really helped them. So prominently displaying something like a thermometer would be helpful. You can also, I know my students love pictures. They don't necessarily like me taking their picture, but once I put it up on the wall, they love it being there. So I think, that was something we did during College Application Week, is we took their picture after they applied and put it up on a big poster. You could do something similar after they submit their FAFSA. I submitted my FAFSA, have a chalkboard or a whiteboard or something, and I know one teacher just made a list of all the seniors and on a big poster, and whenever they submitted the FAFSA, she put a big $sign next to their name, or just something visual for them to see once it's completed. Some other things that you could think about doing, possibly like a raffle, where if a student submits their FAFSA, they can give you proof, print off that submission page or show you that email that says they've submitted their FAFSA. Then they would get a raffle ticket, and maybe you do a drawing once a week, and your prizes might be things that don't cost a lot of money. You can reach out to your colleges and ask for T-shirts. Dana on the spot there. I know, she's like, oh yeah. No, but T-shirts, water bottles, any of that stuff. Kids just like getting free stuff. Also, some of Dutch Bros, we know how much kids love that, and Dutch Bros has been really great in my experience when I've asked them to donate things like this. You could also think about things at your school that students might want, such as maybe you can work with your leadership or your student council if they're planning prom. Maybe they'll be willing to give away 2 prom tickets or something, and you could raffle off 2 admissions to prom, or something that has a monetary value but maybe doesn't cost you personally anything or your department. So those are just some ideas. again, reach out to your colleges, reach out to your local businesses, see if they'd be willing to donate, and kind of tell them what this is. It's a state initiative, and they typically are willing to donate. Another idea would be to do something like a FAFSA Fridays. So maybe the whole month of January, every Friday, you call it FAFSA Friday, and you set aside time in a computer lab that is protected time for you as a counselor, because I know how hard it is to help a student with a FAFSA if it's not something you're planning on doing. It's time consuming. So if you set aside, every Friday from 12 to 3, I'm going to be in this computer lab. I'll be available. Students, bring in your taxes. I'll help you. That's just like a set aside time for you and for the students to come. Parents could come in as well. You can do a lot with FAFSA Friday. So that's just some ideas that we have. We know you guys will come up with some very creative ones. But in fact, are there any that anyone wants to share that you found have worked particularly well in the past when trying to get students to complete the FAFSA? Trying to make this more interactive so you don't just... Okay. Well, if you think of any, share them, because that's how we get better, is we share ideas. But so I'll let Kathy talk a little bit about doing a financial aid presentation for your students as well.
And the financial aid presentation can take several different forms. It's totally up to how you want to do it. I have done it lots of different ways. I am going to try a different way this year. I am going to go into every language arts classroom this year, and I'm going to do a FAFSA presentation, and I'm going to hand out what we call a cheat sheet to each student, which it says it's on page 36, but it's actually on page 53. So if you can cross out 36 and put in 53, that would be wonderful.
Where's that? What page are you on, Kathy?
I am on page 12.
Sorry.
And the cheat sheet starts on page 53, and it goes to page 56.
52?
53. 53 to 56.
Yeah.
And you can make copies of these, use them.
So I have a cute little interactive presentation I did last year, and I'm going to begin by showing that, which is not very long at all. And then I am going to talk about the cheat sheet. And what I think is cool about the cheat sheet is students can actually take this home to their parents, because at my particular school, it is very difficult to get parents to come to most anything. Now, some of you don't have that problem. Your parents are just lined up to come, okay? But at my particular school, that is not the case. And so anything I can do that can make it easier for them. And so I'm going to give every student one of these cheat sheets. And it even says on here that as soon as we are done putting in the information, we will shred it. Okay? Not every parent is going to want to do this cheat sheet, because obviously to work, they're going to have to put down Social Security numbers and tax information. And like I said, not every parent is going to feel comfortable doing this, but I do have lots of parents who just don't want to mess with it, okay? And they are willing to give their students information like this. So my hope is that they will fill this out if they don't want to participate at all, and then the student can bring it back when I actually go in the classrooms, because I'm going in this year to the classrooms to complete FAFSAs. And then during this presentation, when I give out the cheat sheet, I'm also going to have them do the FSA ID. Okay, so we're going to, the hope is we're going to get them going very early. In this presentation, I'm giving food, because that's one thing I've realized. No matter what, they like food. Okay, so I'm going to feed them food, and I'm going to pre-warn them that they need their Social Security number. And I must say, interesting enough, when I did College App Week, a lot more students knew their Social Security number than I'd ever seen before. And I'm not sure exactly why, but a lot more did, which is pretty darn helpful. Julie will also show you a financial aid presentation, PowerPoint, a little bit later. And so it's up to you how you do your presentation, or even if you want to do one. But I found that it is really helpful, because students don't know what subsidized and unsubsidized loans mean. they don't know what a Pell Grant is for the most part. So you need to give them that information so you can at least get started.
And we know that not everyone has the luxury of being able to go into classrooms and do these presentations. You know, if you can get the buy-in and the support of your administrator, that definitely helps. I am very fortunate at my high school. We have a class for all of our seniors called High School to Life, and they are all required to take it, and it's a class that really helps them prepare for their future. And so it's my avenue into getting to have access to all my seniors, and it's really helpful. And I plan to go into that class next week and also give the cheat sheet. And I work really, closely with that teacher to provide some of the information about financial aid. So obviously, I'm in a very unique situation, and it's wonderful. I know not everyone is like that. So you might just want to work with your English and your government teachers, who I know get picked on a lot and they don't like it. So if you can find other creative ways to get in front of seniors, do share those, because I know that we're not all in that situation. So moving on to page 13, I want to talk for just a minute about what we mentioned before, and that is the name-by-name FAFSA lookup. A lot of us know, I think, that we can look up and see how many students from our high school have submitted a FAFSA application, but we don't know who those students are. This name-by-name FAFSA lookup is something that the state has worked on to get this available to us so that we can use it to follow up with students. So if you sign that data usage agreement, which Andy Meal will send out in January, make sure you see it, because I know January is crazy busy for all of us for a million different reasons. So be on the lookout for that data usage agreement. But all you have to do is sign it, saying that you agree to the terms, send it back, and then he will send you updates weekly with your specific students who have started a FAFSA application, who have submitted a FAFSA application, but then those who have started but not submitted. So then you can start to follow up with some of those kids who logged in, filled out a couple things, and then they, for whatever reason, logged out and didn't submit. And that's really helpful, because I think even sometimes we find kids who thought they submitted it, they thought they were done, but they didn't actually go all the way through. So again, we just want to make sure you're aware of that. If you don't hear from Andy Meal at the State Board of Ed in January, feel free to just email him in advance and say, hey, I want to make sure my school has access to this name-by-name FAFSA lookup, because this is really going to help me, and he'll make sure to get you set up with that. But we just recommend probably every 2 weeks checking out that list, and if you can, follow up with those students. Check in. Hey, I see that you started your FAFSA, but you haven't submitted yet. What do we need to do to get this caught up? So, any questions on the name-by-name FAFSA lookup?
And you can't see amounts or anything. You can just see where they're at in the process.
Yeah.
So, sometimes administrators are a little leery of this because of all the protections and releases, but it is a good tool for this that the state has gotten approved, and last year not too many counselors were able to access that or had time, so maybe with some prioritization, if we can get more schools to access it, that would be a good thing, so that the state can kind of see that we need that tool to keep coming. Can you guys slide this way more so you're more on the screen?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Did you guys have any questions out there in Meridian? Are you with us?
Yep, we're here.
Okay, good. Okay.
Julie, there's someone from Boise State Trio that's trying to get on via
I
IEN.
wasn't aware. I'm terribly sorry. I wasn't aware you had changed the time. I'm Abby, by the way.
Oh, hi, Abby.
Hi. And so I just had a call from Corey Freeze. Were you expecting him? He's not being able to get connected. So
You'll need to call in to the number, and I will get that to you right now.
okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, I'm
Thank
terribly
you.
sorry
Thanks
to
for
interrupt.
helping
Okay.
us.
Thank you
Yeah.
for everything you did.
Okay.
All right, so we will move on to page 15.
And this event information sheet, We would just hope that this would help you serve as a guide as you're planning your FAFSA campaign. Again, thinking of it as a campaign, not just an event. These are just some guiding questions when you meet with your team, when you meet with your department. Go through these questions and fill out this form just so that you have it. For us that are actual TVEP Cash for College schools, we have to submit this information to TVEP. But if you're not a TVEP school, we just, you obviously don't have to do this, but we think it would be a really good resource in guiding you in figuring out your campaign and setting up what you want to do. So,
Jenny, how do we
Yes,
go for a
sorry.
TVEP school?
You're not.
Thank you.
You'd have to go to meetings.
The goal area 4 there's an application process, selection process for that. So
we have to compete against other schools.
yes, no, you don't.
We usually win those.
Yeah. That's why you probably wouldn't be a TVEP.
They don't want us.
With the highest need.
Yeah.
And
We've had
participation rate, right?
go on rates, lower rates, high reduced free lunch, as well as we've looked at academics as well. So
it's usually the schools that have the greatest ability to benefit from being a TVEP school, if that
But
helps.
that's why we're here too, because we want to start building it. Our idea for this in California, they have a 7 to 8 hour training every year just for counselors on financial aid, and they offer credit. So I was talking to Lori Lodge. She was here this morning about working with the institutions so that it could be something for the counselors to come to, but also beneficial so that they would earn some credit, things like that. And then TVEP is also working with the state to try and increase counselor funding, because we know that that's the major thing is you can have all the training in the world, but time and amount of people who are on the ground working with the near peers, and then just people in general to help. So there's more funding for more school counselors.
well, and I don't want to say that we will never include it. The TVEP has started with pilot programs. So our first year we had 4 schools that we were working with. Our next year we had 6. This year we expanded to 7 or 8. And so I don't want to say that this couldn't be expanded. Actually, the whole Treasure Valley, all the SIC schools, but we've kind of been focusing on piloting programs first. So we've shifted kind of what we were doing before to this new Cash for College, and I think this has a better it has a better chance of being applied and really distributed widely.
I do too.
Yeah, I think it's a lot less.
Because before it was a competition, so you couldn't let everyone pilot it because it was a competition, but we learned that the competition didn't work like we thought it would, so we were kind of the guinea pigs to see what was going to work and what wasn't going to work, and we determined that wasn't going to work. So we've shifted a little bit. Okay, so the next part on page 16 is some ideas for announcements, Facebook, outdoor marquee signs, social media, all of those types of things. And we did borrow this with permission, okay, from another state. And I think what's nice about this is, when you're like, oh, I should put an announcement for that, and then you're like, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time to write something up. So this gives you things that you can actually just turn in, because it's not even all that school specific. We put in here phases 1 and 2. However, we're into December, and so that's something you could use for next year. But if we will go to phase 3, and we'll just quickly look at it, and then we'll move into something else. And phase 3 is on page 24. Okay, so that's file your taxes early, and it has something that you could put in the announcements. And I'm planning on actually putting this in our announcements sometime in the next week or 2. The one thing I like is there is a sporting event announcement, and I'm actually going to try that this year. So at one of our boys' basketball games, because that's the highest attended, I guess I could do it at girls too. I'm going to give this, and they can actually just read that. And we'll see if that impacts parent participation at all. But there's also Twitter, Facebook, and for every single phase. So phase 4 is financial aid February. Phase 5 is verification, which we all know is very important. Phase 6 is I know what I owe, and that's late March and May. So hopefully, instead of you having to come up with, well, what announcement am I going to do, or what should I have put out there at that basketball game, here's exactly what you need to say, and you can tweak it a little bit, and so you don't have to come up with anything on your own.
And I think if we think about it again, like as a campaign, that it's something that it's all year long, that it's a message that students are hearing all year long, even your underclassmen. It just creates, again, that culture of, oh yeah, I need to do my FAFSA, and it's not just my FAFSA, I need to do this, the verification, I need to, it's a year-long process, and then it just becomes, instead of just a singular event. So that's why we really like that and wanted to share some of those ideas with you. Hopefully they'll be helpful. So then we wanted to share just a little bit, again, about how to do a parent information or a FAFSA night. I know probably every single one of your schools, you've done a parent night where it's either been a FAFSA information night where they just come learn about financial aid. I know Yvette was saying they did one last night at Nampa High. And every school has done something like this. And again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Just if there's something you haven't tried that you haven't heard of before, we're just trying to help expand on some of the things you're already doing. But again, the first place that we would definitely recommend starting is choose your date. Check your school calendar and figure out what's going on those evenings. You probably don't want to schedule it on the same night as a huge rivalry basketball game. Nobody's gonna come, or if there's a big choir concert or theater production or something, just pay attention to what else is going on at your school that evening. And then again, schedule those people who can help you. Schedule your TRIO representatives if you have TRIO. Even if you don't have TRIO, and I'm putting TRIO on the spot here, you can reach out, and they are usually willing to help. I know when I interned at Centennial, we had TRIO people come and help us. And we don't have TRIO at Centennial. So they're a resource. Reach out to them now. Get on their calendar. Same with the colleges for the financial aid offices. Invite them to come. They are the experts. Those tough questions that parents have about, what do I say on this question? And I'm like, I have no idea. The financial aid person can answer those questions. So it's always good to have at least one person there. Also, if you can request, if you have a large amount of students at your school whose parents may speak Spanish, it's really helpful to request a Spanish-speaking financial aid officer. I know we had one from CWI come last year, and we did have some Spanish-speaking parents show up, and it was very helpful. Another thing that we did is we reached out to a church that was close by, and we reached out to their youth group and had them come and provide childcare during our event. And so we just got some coloring books and some games, and they got volunteer hours for it, so they loved it. And so we did have parents who brought their children because they didn't have babysitting or something. And it was fun for the youth group kids, and it was fun for the little kids. So if you can, even if you don't have a church close by, you could reach out to maybe your National Honor Society students or your leadership students. They could volunteer and get volunteer hours for that, and it's really helpful. Any other ideas for parent night?
Just know when I have food, people do come, okay? And I have had really good luck, and it is a little pricey, but I have sent postcards home, and when I do that, I get a lot higher attendance at an event. So I do recommend, if you can afford it, to send home postcards to a parent like 3 weeks before the event. And then I've also done auto dialer 2 days before the event. So that just is another reminder. And we also have Peach Jar or e-flyers. And even though I've plugged it to death, I send that out 2 days before the event. And that's how I maintain at least the amount of people that I get. This year, I'm going to try a little different venue. I'm going to do most of my FAFSA in class during the day. And then make appointments with parents, and I am going to do a FAFSA help night. We're going to see if that will increase our FAFSA completions. You know, it's always you're just always trying something new to see what works.
Definitely. And if anyone has any ideas they'd like to share, we'd love those. We know you've all done them. Some have been more successful than others, but hopefully you'll have a good one this year. And we've learned that if you can offer it during the day when the students are there, just like tutoring or things like that, academic help, if you can offer a financial aid session during the day. I know we're planning a career day for our school in January, and we're building it into that career day. So while our juniors are listening to career speakers, our seniors are going to be in computer labs doing the FAFSA. And so I reached out to some financial aid people to come and help during that day. And that's a time during the school day built in where students can work on the FAFSA. So again, I know not every school has these options, but if you can just kind of think creatively, how can I work this into my school day and get people to come help me during the school day, you'll probably have a higher percentage who submit. So, yeah, those are our ideas.
And I want to throw in there, too, I do not have a school that the teachers are gung-ho to let me in classes. I have to say I had a very difficult time, but I've worked through the superintendent, and this is something she feels strongly about, and so the teachers are letting me in this year. It's just something that they're going to do. So even if you have teachers who say, no, you are not coming into my classroom, be respectful, but talk to your superintendent or talk to your building principal. How do they feel about that? And sometimes you can change some attitudes that way. So
awesome. So on page 34, we just wanted to point out there are some really great infographics. This one is really hard to read. It's awesome if you get like a magnifying glass out and can read what it says. But there are some really great infographics on the Federal Student Aid website that are just like this that you can print out in larger font for your use. I like those better than just a bunch of words sometimes. And then
Kathy, why fill out the FAFSA? Okay. Well, we all know why you do the FAFSA: the free money, the borrowed money, and the earned money. So I'm not going to go over that section. However, I think it's very interesting, this lower part, the 2015-16 annual borrowing limits. It's nice to see that in writing, actually. So for a freshman, if they're a dependent student, the most they can get under subsidized is $3,500 a year, and total $5,500 a year, so $2,000 in unsubsidized. And the max Pell Grant is for next year is $5,775. I have students who come to me and want to go to a college that costs $40,000 a year, and they think they can borrow enough student loans in order to pay for it all. And I have to remind them that no, $5,500 is, even if you get the max, $5,500 plus the $5,775 is the most you can get. So you would have to figure out where you're going to come up with the rest of the funding, rather it be a Parent Plus loan, which is still not going to cover it all. So that helps in making the choices, even if they're willing to max out on their student loans. And one thing that I think I will throw out here is I learned something very interesting from the BYU Idaho representative that came this fall. I always struggled with my kids going on a mission wanting to fill out the FAFSA, and they just didn't want to do it even if it was going to help their class. But he brought a list, and I had 8 kids on there, and if they would have filled out the FAFSA and they would have done a 1-page scholarship, they would have gotten a full tuition for 4 years at BYU Idaho, okay? And so we had this discussion this morning, well, wouldn't they do that when they got back? Well, here's the really cool thing. If they do it now, they're guaranteed that that will be there, Okay, so they know, hey, I come back from my mission, I'm going to have all my college tuition paid for, and I won't have to even worry about it. Now, every college is not that way, but typically your students that are going on a mission are going to BYU, Idaho, BYU, Utah State, those kinds of schools. They will hold their scholarship, and so I'm going to use that this year. I'm also going to go over and talk to the seminary teachers and kind of work it that way to try to get more of those kids who are going right out of high school now, going on a mission to complete the FAFSA and do that one scholarship page or whatever it takes so that they can get scholarships before they even go on to college. And then when they come back, they have that option. Yes, I can use this scholarship. No, if I don't want to and I'm somewhere else in my life. But at least they have that in place before they even leave.
And I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Will they need to fill it out again yet when they get back? So once they leave, get the scholarship, and then get back. Okay.
Yeah, because that's what's really important to remind students and parents, because we hear this all the time, that, well, my family's not going to get anything, so I'm not going to do the FAFSA. Right. It's really important to remind students and parents that there are scholarships at those institutions that they will not get unless they do the FAFSA. Mm-hmm. They may not get a grant. That's true. But if they don't do the FAFSA, they won't even be considered for some of the scholarships offered at those colleges. So if we can get that message out to parents, because like that's the BYU Idaho, you know, of course they're going to have to reapply for FAFSA when they get back from their mission if they want to use loans, but that scholarship is separate, but they have to do the FAFSA to get the scholarship. So just to remind students of that, because that's something I know we hear a lot as counselors, but it's a myth. It's probably the biggest myth out there when it comes to the FAFSA, I think.
So question then, when students fill out a FAFSA, it asks them what semester they intend to be in school. So they would basically have to falsify that.
They would probably say fall. I usually tell them, just put fall 2016, and then when you would tell the college, I'm going on a mission and I won't be there. And Dana's going, yes, so that's correct.
And because at the time that they're doing the FAFSA, they actually don't know for sure.
Right.
Because they haven't been offered a mission, you know. So, but I want to underscore one point, which is, while this is true for like BYU I scholarships, it is not true for opportunity. So if the students, and it's kind of a myth that's out there that we would like to get straight, which is I don't discourage them from applying for opportunity because they don't know. But the flip side is if they do choose to go on a mission, they cannot put that scholarship on hold. So, but they don't know, and I think that's one thing that all the students need to be encouraged in, is that they should not limit their options by not filling out a FAFSA. By not applying
they will
now.
know what they have to do.
Right.
So while they're on a mission, they will be able to apply at the time when they need, because.
Interesting enough, even my military reps tell me they've all used FAFSA. Even though they have the GI Bill, they've all used FAFSA. So last year, every kid that said, I'm going in the military, I had them still fill out a FAFSA. Number one, about 30% of them get turned down from the military because of their ASVAB score or they can't meet the health requirements. And second of all, then they'll know, okay, a little bit about where I am financially. And so when they are in the military, they know that they might have that money in order to help finance their education. You had something too.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
No, we were having before was, for the opportunity scholarships, I'm just curious if kids come back from that mission, if they're able to apply.
Yes, because undergraduates are eligible, and even if they've had that gap where they're not attending, they're still eligible. And if we'll go back and look at their high school GPA or any credits, you know, if they have any credits like that. So, but again, I think it's a great thing for them to go through the process and see where they sit. And also because students do silly things where they limit their options, like they're so sure that they've got some kind of athletic scholarship and then they don't hedge, and all of a sudden the athletic scholarship falls through and they've got nothing. So they need to be not too complacent about what their options are.
And to piggyback on the Idaho opportunity, I know for me personally, I have students who are like dead set, they're going out of state, so they're like, well, I'm not going to do the Idaho opportunity because I'm not staying in Idaho. I still tell them it's the easiest scholarship in the world. Just do it because you know when they see that $3,000 when they've been awarded that it makes a big difference. And by the time they learn about that in May, they've probably also figured out that, you know what, I really can't afford to go to Humboldt, so I'm going to stay here and go to NNU because I just got this scholarship. So try to encourage them to do it as well.
And the other thing, too, what you said earlier that I think is so important because the students are they just see those scholarships they get offered by NNU and College of Idaho are so huge. They don't grasp until they're down to the wire that they've got $10,000 or more that they have no way to get money to make up that gap. And so they need to not limit their options and not totally reject the idea that they might end up going to one of our state schools because they really can't afford to go to a private institution.
Yep. Don't put your eggs all in one basket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so Jenny and I have finished our section, and we're turning it over to Julie now to tell you all about the FAFSA and really how it works.
Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions or comments on the toolkit? It was a Michigan resource, a college access network, which is a national college access network, and they did, Amy Little from TVEP went to a training, and they did give us permission. So we apologize on some of the pages, but all the information is good, and we will change it it'll be on that site, and it's available if you need it in Word. I'm trying to think. So that I was just thinking those announcements might be nice if you could copy and paste instead of retyping those. We can get that out too, and we'll suggest that to Amy that she puts it on there.
What is it? In Word, put announcements in Word.
Well, if we could get the whole
toolkit
in Word.
So it could be duplicated because otherwise it's got to read.
Because there's like a sample letter home that you'd want to amend as well, so press release, all of that.
Yes, and just fix some of the page numbers.
Go ahead.
I got that too.
Thank
Page
you.
numbers, graphic splits.
I have a question about the campaign, because I was just jotting down some of the activities and different things, like getting the donations and calling the media, the 3 hours on Friday, all of that. How many hours, and you can do it weekly or maybe over I think it was 21 weeks long, over that 21 weeks, would you estimate that this would take?
Well, for me, I can tell you, and one thing I did last year, I did a game show. Actually, I did it the last 2 years, and that was really fun. I got a DJ from the local radio station, and we did a complete to win, and we did a game show format like Price is Right. So I did that event, and then I did a FAFSA help event, and then I went into the classrooms. So if you consider all of that, and then I also called parents, I probably would say you're looking at probably 8 hours. Okay.
A week?
Oh, no. In the whole total thing, 8 to 10 hours. Now, if you talk about the time, like if you do a FAFSA Friday, and you talk about you're going to give 2 hours up of your day every single week, then yeah, you're looking at a lot more time.
Because some of the things that, looking at all of the data, meeting with all of those students individually.
Right.
Every time you said reach out, I'm thinking,
right.
that's time. And
Right.
so that realistically, I think, what would you say
Well,
weekly?
It's really hard, I think, for Kathy and I, because we are in the very unique and awesome position that we are just focused on college and career.
Right.
yeah,
And so for us, we can
Would you
do
say-
that.
that is our job.
Right. Of your time, how much would be spent on this campaign? I'm just trying to get a realistic idea of where we're going to get that resource, let alone the money for the prizes and that kind of stuff. So that resource of time is really precious, as you guys know. And so I'm trying to get a feel from you guys, because you guys are doing this full time. How much of that full time is spent on this campaign?
I wouldn't even say an hour a week, except once you get past February 15th, then you've really got to start looking at your data and who hasn't completed, and probably like maybe 2 or 3 days a week, I would take 45 minutes or an hour during that time, generally from the third week in February to the middle of March. I take probably 30 minutes a day, every other day, and just call parents, okay? Do you know that we have FAFSA and it's a federal government program? I had better luck calling the parents than calling the kids in repeatedly, because kids will say, I'm going to do that. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm going to do that. But really, unless you can get the parents on board, it's pretty difficult to make inroads there. I would say coming February, I'd probably say an hour a week at the most.
I would say I probably spend 10 hours a week.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going into
It's different.
classrooms and stuff,
Yeah,
I just think
the classroom. If you're going into every single classroom, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you're meeting with those kids, or even meeting with the parents, and the evening presentations.
Right.
Which all of those are wonderful, and that game show sounds like a wonderful
Oh,
thing.
it was fun.
I'm wondering, realistically, what type of man hours do we have to have
One
to
thing-
really do this?
One thing I would suggest that you consider, since they have put together such a nice toolkit, what you have is the luxury of looking at this and then identifying what you really need to do and what could a group of volunteers, or how could certain aspects of it be farmed out to a parent group or someone else. Because to build a successful campaign, the more people that you have that are committed to it, the more it's going to happen. And when you're in a situation where you aren't able to carve out X number of time to devote to this yourself, to ration the pieces where you can get people to say, oh, I could do that. I can't do this, but I could do that for you. You might find yourself not having to do as much and have the added benefit of buy-in from other school members to
And I
supporting
can
the
see using
activity.
those resources. I just want to get a realistic picture of time-wise, like we do have commitments from groups. Okay, what do we need?
Yeah, because when I go in the classrooms, it's always 2.5 days solid. Okay, and I don't think of that as time given up, because that's my job. But I could see where a regular counselor, you would have to divide all that up so that you weren't spending all your time in the classroom.
And I'm not in a school setting, so I could be talking crazy here, but one of the things I like about College Application Week and this event, where you try to get things done in a cohort in the school, is if you're talking with students individually, that definitely takes more time. If you can do collectively, I think it gives you more time. If you're not having to call Johnny and Susie and then Sally down, but can talk with them together and then just fix the little things, it seems like it not only helps you to get it done, it's just being able to probably carve out time from the teachers that give up time in their classrooms to go in there and do.
Might be a good idea that we look at that. I don't want to commit that our school, our C4C schools will be tracking their time commitments, but maybe we can have, it's kind of hard to do an on the spot thing, but maybe we can look at a little bit more in depth and see if that, because it's definitely a little bit different when you have people who have, that's their primary job, their career in college counselors, and then it's different when you are fitting that into all of your other responsibilities.
And we have schools that they are just regular counselors, so that would be a good idea, because a lot of this, I'm sure I spend a lot more time, but it's just my job, so I don't really think of it as time away from my other duties. So, but I understand what you mean.
Yeah. So I think that's something
It's
we
fairly,
can.
it's labor intensive to follow up with students and parents. Lori Lodge was here this morning, and she was the career counselor at Timberline, and she built a group of parent volunteers that she had come back for several. That's one of the problems with volunteers. Sometimes you get them all trained and then they're gone the next year. But if you were interested in that, she would be more than willing to come in and kind of show you how she set that up. And she used them for financial aid, Idaho CIS. I mean, they were her helpers because it was a big school.
The confidentiality part of that was okay.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues, along with tracking the names, and so we can talk to her about different things that she did to ensure that. And through the Boise district, I know they have some.
This all sounds wonderful, and I would love to do. I'm just wondering,
Time.
like I said,
Absolutely.
realistically, how much time
It is
spent
intensive.
Yes, that is a good point. It really is.
And it is hard work for
Yeah.
sure. And I think, anyone would tell you that. And that's why when we set goals of 80% and 60%, we're like, ooh, and then we actually went down a little last year. So,
Well, and just to piggyback off of what Julie's talking about with parent reps, definitely take advantage of your college representatives as well. 'Cause I think in the previous years we've gone out to high schools and just added a little extra help, and we're not FAFSA experts by any means, but it just helps to have a little extra help there at your events.
and I know there's like a request on the Boise State side. I just say do it like early, like this week, because I know they fill up. I know there's a counselor, financial aid person to come to your school and things. So. Okay, so this PowerPoint is also on the Cash for College site. Did you guys have any questions? Corey, are you with us? Corey Freeze? No? Okay. He was supposed to call in. Oh, hi, how are you?
Great. He had you on mute.
So this training came from the Gear Up West conference, and some of our colleagues at the University of California, Davis. It's called College Options. It's a very cool association. It's got University of California, Davis money, private money, TRIO money, and a Gear Up grant. And so they have this consortium, and they have financial aid experts. That's all they do is financial aid. And I was fortunate to attend their training, and then they provided us a PowerPoint. So all the credit goes to them. It's on the site. Did everyone get one? We have more.
Oh, yeah, one more.
Okay. Maybe you can give that to them. I might follow yours with you.
There.
Okay.
Got it. You got it.
And it's again under the training materials. And you can take this and use it. This one, I don't know if this is PDF or not. It might be. I can get it to you and not, and you can change it for your school. Put all your scholarships on it. Whatever you want to do. Is it going to load for me? There's a problem. Let's see.
I love how the chairs. They're so funny. When you move, you're like, squeak, squeak, squeak. I know they're like, oh my God.
And then let's wheel it out. Your birthday present.
Yeah.
It's your birthday.
So the secret on this PowerPoint is all the notes in the slides, which are sort of the what to emphasize as a counselor. And we're not going to read every single slide and every single note because we'll be here for many, many hours. And I encourage you, if you do a presentation, not to do that because people will be glazed over in like 25 minutes. Because it is financial aid. So, stop working. Why is it doing that? Let's see if I can get on that. Okay, so, why is it not? There we go. So much for good context. All right. So the first thing is talking to the families about what the goal is and making family decisions. One of the things we're finding through FAFSA research is you've got 18-year-olds who are like, we're off on our own. We don't need our parents anymore. But for FAFSA, they do need their parents until they're 24, actually, or at least need their parental family information. And so sometimes it's an interesting situation because you've got students who are breaking away, but yet for this particular form, which is 80% of students use some kind of federal financial aid at our public institutions in the state. So whether that's a grant or a loan. Talking to them a little bit about, now it's going really fast. Let's say you're going to buy a car. Everybody would love to have a brand new, Lexus. Most of us probably can't afford a Lexus, or maybe you could, but it's a used one. And then, what would the student want? The parents like, you need a Ford Focus. And then that was your grandma's. And then, what can you afford? Maybe you really need a good Honda so talk a little bit about that, about college is we, in TRIO, we never want to crush people's dreams because we're all about dreams. But we always talk to them, and you guys know this language about a reach school, kind of a safe school, and a backup school. Same thing with financial aid. If we talk to them about options and opportunities and the decisions that affect the rest of the family. So It is a family conversation for most students. We do have some students out there who are on their own, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. What's financial aid? And I like the way they, ooh, this is a real thing. Oops, let me go back now. I didn't download it last time. Dividing it into gift aid and self-help aid is one way, I think a better way to explain it. Using the financial aid, you're going to apply for grants, but then you're also going to be eligible for work-study money and loans. And then, if you qualify, scholarships. And like Jenny was saying, a lot of folks don't realize that. They may not qualify for a grant or even want to take out a loan, but they do want that full ride foundation scholarship at whatever school. The school's going to require that they do a FAFSA form. And then you can also talk, these three screens are limited, middle, and lower limited income families, and it gives you kind of some scenarios based on, what kind of Pell Grant they could maybe expect to receive, work-study jobs, student loans, Idaho Opportunity, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And then middle income families, they may not qualify for a grant, but they might qualify for tax credits, student loans, which you can write the interest off on. So there's something for everyone. Maybe talk to them about merit-based scholarships. Lightfoot Foundation is a local scholarship. It's less than $90,000, so it's not, maybe a family is not going to get a grant from doing the FAFSA, but if they want to apply for Lightfoot, they do have to turn in their financial aid information, including the EFC from their FAFSA. And so, if for no other reason, and the Lightfoot is a wonderful family, local family who has given out millions, I don't know, they've got to get close to millions. It's renewable, it's for students from the Valley, and you can actually use it out of state or in state, and if sometimes people are like, why am I here? I'm like, okay, let me give you some help here. I can't give you many, but I can give you some ideas. And then higher income, this whole idea, I like this free insurance. 30 minutes, it's a free form. Let's say next year your company goes under, happens. Let's say, unforeseen circumstances happen and you didn't do the FAFSA, so you've eliminated yourself from those options and opportunities. So maybe talk to them about it as an insurance plan. That makes some sense to me and to families. So those types of applications. For the FAFSA for citizens and permanent residents, I just had a question a couple hours ago about DACA students, which are the deferred action students, can work. They actually have Social Security numbers. Some schools had them do the FAFSA to kind of see their information. I should probably ask you guys that from ISU, what you're going to do this year. If DACA students...
I don't know much about DACA, to be honest.
Yeah.
You, Liana.
No, they are not.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm glad you
Thanks. Thanks, Dana.
But in order to qualify for some of the institutional scholarships...
So DACA's
that I
do
don't know.
more private scholarships.
Right.
Yeah. They don't do a lot of governments.
And institutional aid, they may be able to, but
Right.
they're not eligible for.
They're not eligible for grants and loans. We will get back to you. I will investigate that because last year some schools were having them do it, some wouldn't, but they won't qualify. And then undocumented students will not qualify either. If their parents are undocumented and the student has a number, the student's documented, they put in zeros for the parents and then send in a paper form. So if you have more questions on those specific things, give me a call. I'm doing some investigation on this. It seems to change year to year on what we're doing. So we'll talk to, if you can remind me, we'll talk to our staff because they're out there in the field and we have, students who come in and talk to us a little bit about that. And then the CSS profile is another private financial aid form. And this is another one that lots of schools have large endowments. Dr. Custer came and spoke to a class. He said BSU has $3 million in their endowment, and University of Washington, I don't know if he said 3 or 30. I think he said 3 billion, right, with the B. And so sometimes when people see that, they're like, why do they want all this stuff from me? The profile is a private form. It does cost a fee. There are ways to get it waived, but that's on top of the FAFSA. And then federal tax transcript, tax returns, documentation. You can use 2014. It's much, much better for a student to fill it out with an estimation based on 14 or last paycheck stubs. Fill it out, submit it with a little check in the corner, meaning that they have to go back and correct it, than to wait and then miss those priority deadlines. And then I like this slide because you start with the FAFSA, and that determines the estimated family contribution. Okay, the government is expecting that the family could be the first source of information. This is sometimes very difficult for some of our families who are whatever you want to determine as middle class or upper middle class. They perhaps are working 2 jobs, double family income, have a rental property, or have some other assets. The government's going to look at those assets to discover that. And so they're like, what? I don't have $10,000 for my kid to go to college, And so you have to talk to them a little bit about that the government is trying to allocate the money to the families and to the students who have the most need. And that's why they have us do the FAFSA. Cost of attendance is what the college is going to cost. So your EFC is the same no matter where you go. Cost of attendance changes. And then you get the formula. The cost of attendance minus the estimated family contribution is the need. And then I kind of like this little graph of you're filling the bucket. All right, that's what you're going to do with your financial aid. And so you can't see it on here, but verification and corrections are another place where we're seeing a lot of students. That's kind of a really sticky point. We did some summer melt activity, and 90% had to do with verification and corrections because it is based on the federal tax form. Sometimes you have families who maybe haven't filed taxes, or there's a business involved, lots of different reasons. And then from that, once your verification is done, it produces the financial aid award. And the financial aid usually goes straight to the college. If there's any little extra money left over, it will go back to the student for books or gas or food or housing, depending on where they're living. And it has a little thing, you have to do it by the deadlines. Deadlines are, if you put nothing else in announcements, that's a great one to put in is deadlines. Okay. Another thing is there's a lot of fear, I think, of the federal government in our schools, and I don't know if that's justified or unjustified, but we talked to them about if you use the helps and hints button, 90 to 95% of the questions can be filled out. Sometimes we get in a hurry, especially if we're doing a whole class or, we're trying to get the kid through the system. But if you look over here and you read, or a parent's, frantically trying to get to their next shift or whatever, if you look through there, you can usually answer the questions. If not, you can call the Federal Financial Aid Office. You can call the line. They have chat on there, depending on the time of day. Usually works fairly well. There are busy times when you may not get somebody. And so we talked about that. Cost of attendance, 5 components are the tuition and fees, room and board, which, sometimes I tell families you're kind of doing this right now. Books and supplies, very, very expensive books and supplies these days, although some new online resources are kind of helping with that. Transportation, again, a place kind of varies on your lifestyle there. Personal expenses. Direct payments go to the college. And a student chooses. So this is, again, talking to him about lifestyle. And, when you're going to college, you may not be able to buy the newest wardrobe every season kind of thing. You perhaps need to look at what you can afford.
The 70s are coming back.
Yeah, and sometimes, we have an instant society. We don't have to wait for stuff very long, do we? Which is good and bad, too, because we have a credit situation. But and spending 4 years in school for some students, or 5 or 6, is sometimes like that's so far out there. So I always talk to them about you'd be 23 or 22, you work till 70.
Yeah.
So that's 50 years. You're spending 4 years now. Sometimes that works. Sometimes they're like, yeah. And then cost of attendance, though, is different at every college. So EFC is the same, cost of attendance is different. And then sometimes it's called the student budget. And a lot of the student websites, the college websites now will have a financial aid link, and under that will have the cost of attendance and the budget right in there. This is a big one about income on the FAFSA, what to do with Social Security income, right? And then the student income, a lot of students are like, oh, I made way too much money, and they're working really hard, and some of them do make a lot of money because they work a lot of hours, but up to about this much is protected, $6,300. That's true in their second and third. It'll go up a little bit. So we know that students who work about 15 hours, 15 depends on the studies you read, 15 to 20 hours do okay in college, and sometimes they actually do better because their time is allocated for them. But over that, we also know that they have a higher chance of not doing well in college, and that's where we get into loan situations, defaults, and things like that, because they're not able to finish.
Julie, do you know if by protected, is the system formulating that? So if they earn 10,000, they report 10,000, and the system will take out 6,300.
That part will not be considered as as income as part of the EFC.
And then if they only made 5,000 during the year, are we still telling them to report that on there? Because
On their
sometimes they're
things.
like, well, I didn't make enough, I don't really want to report it, but
Yes.
we're still saying you
If they
earned it,
get
you
chosen
report
for verification, they're gonna show that. And then assets not included are their actual home they live in. Rental properties are. Rental trailers are. I'm trying to think of some other things that people ask us about, and also like some of the Gates scholarships, the Lightfoot scholarships. They want to know all the assets. So we have some families who save and save and save and have their retirement invested in real estate or invested in other things. So sometimes you can talk to the school about that, the actual school where the student's planning to go. Life insurance, and then the ranch or the farm. You have to have over 100 employees. So that's, most people don't have over 100 employees. And then this is just a little thing about keeping the assets out of the student's name. And then these charts are talking about, having the gift, the 33,000. This gets into some more detailed in the student's name, as opposed to moving it to the parent's name, and how in this slide it's in the student's name, and in this slide they have moved it over to the parent's name, or that money has, let's say grandma left I forget the UCGM, it's in the notes.
Uniform Gift to Minors Act.
Uniform Gift to Minors Act. And so you can see by moving that, then their family contribution went from $700 to $2,400. So that is something, if you get to a parent who has really specific questions, I always ask them to call the financial aid office at the school, or oftentimes they will have some kind of financial consultant who may or may not know about these things, but usually they're on board. Yeah.
Just a question on these couple, like the slide prior that says student parent and gives the student's GPA and excellent SAT scores. To me, that's a little misleading because it makes it sound like those things affect the EFC, the student's GPA and their SAT scores, but they do not.
Right. And I think they're in there as to what scholarships the student might possibly qualify for, and I think that's why you're right. It is a little misleading. And sometimes too, with scholarships, let's see, which slide was that on? If I get back to there.
Yeah, because that one's 2.5.
Yeah, this one's 2.5.
And he has no career direction. Well, that doesn't matter in a.
It does if they're applying for like a.
No, but for scholarships.
Institutional scholarships.
Right, I understand that. So like an engineering, major, obviously there's a little more scholarships as opposed to teaching, although we're getting a few more in there. But I think that's why. But you're right. Sometimes too, we'll have a student who has a 3.9 GPA, really high, like an EFC of 0, but they might be awarded a Pell Grant, but then their ACT or SAT score is really low, like a 19 or a 17. And so sometimes we have to explain to the parent that, yes, they have a very high GPA, but their test score is really low. Or the reverse. They might have a pretty high test score, but they haven't taken all of those classes. That usually doesn't happen because that's why they have a higher test score. But sometimes parents, and the other thing is, I think we're almost out of the force with the Boise State. But in the old days, Boise State was open to almost everyone, and now I think parents don't realize that it's actually the most competitive school in the state. U of I is fairly competitive. ISU is competitive. They don't realize that if they haven't taken those classes, they're probably going to a two-year school. Even though they might get a Pell Grant, that doesn't necessarily guarantee them admission or anything at those schools. So a lot of, like you're talking about, a lot of time-consuming work goes into explaining all the different things. The number of people in the household is different than on the tax return. So siblings are supported by the same household if they meet the definition of dependent. So it usually means they provide support for those. If a parent is also a college student, she's not included. They used to be about 6 or 7 years ago. Parents could be included as a college student, but they can no longer. Parents are not considered college students. It'll ask how many people are in college. And then,
Can you go over dependent versus independent?
yeah. So household size. Oh, this is the other one. If you have other people who are in the house, they can be included for FAFSA reasons. They may not necessarily be on the tax return, but when it comes to verification, which the schools that might be a flag. Like, why did you have 6 people on your tax return and 12 people on your FAFSA? That verification, that's where those forms come in, where they'll have to actually go back and verify who's in the house, who the parents supported. But it is true that sometimes the family has other people doubling up, depending on the situation. We did that household size. Okay, dependent and independent. And in the toolkit, too, there's a form on there. This is a question. Most of our students are dependent, even though they're 19 and they feel like they're independent. But for reasons, they need their parents. And we're finding, even with TVEP, we've had some conversations that it's really a difficult process because you need your parents for FAFSA. And even though it's for the students, the parents have to be intrinsically involved. And even this summer, we had a staff member, parents had filed head of household, both parents, on their taxes, which you can't really do. And so she had to work with the parents, go to some tax offices, had to have some accountants explain it to them. And so, it took a lot of time to get both parents in there, for starters. And but the student had actually almost a full ride at College of Southern Idaho, was going to lose that scholarship because of that verification process. So it gets a little sticky.
And just a couple of things on that. We have a lot of students at CUNA who live with their grandparents, and one thing I discovered that if they have not gone to court and got legal custody, I have them fill out the McKinney-Vento, and we declare them homeless, and then they can file as an independent student. So even if the law reads, even if they live with a relative, if they don't have by the court legal custody, they are determined that they are homeless because it is not a, what's it called? Can't think of the name of it.
You don't have like
Secured housing
Anyway.
A guardianship. An adoption, right? If the grandparents have not actually adopted them.
Right. Well, or gone to court.
Right.
Like the
power of attorney.
Yeah, and
well,
it's
they definitely can't be they're not dependents of the
No,
I suppose they could file that.
They're unaccompanied. That's what
they're
I'm thinking.
unaccompanied
Even though they live with a grandparent, and now, one caveat to that is that their parents can't be providing any income. So if they live with grandma and grandpa, but mom and dad is still giving the grandpa and grandma money, then they're not home. They don't consider them
What about
homeless.
claiming on taxes or anything?
That has nothing to do with it either. Because I have parents who say, "Oh, I'm not going to account my student on my taxes so that they can file as an independent student." And I was like, "No, that doesn't work that way."
Do they have to have been doing that for a certain period of time, like a year?
I have been told 6 months.
And some people say just even a few days if they've been homeless or they're in a situation where they were homeless. When you go through the FAFSA, there's a series of questions that we'll ask, and we'll flag that student. We'll ask them questions about have you been awarded court, and that's another piece. But if you can McKinney-Vento a student, talk to your coordinator at the school, that's the best thing for the student. Even a year out, too, it's really crucial that we get them in high school because some scholarships and some financial aid offices require that they show that they were a McKinney-Vento or that they qualified under that. And unfortunately, some students don't realize that till they're out and gone, and then it's really hard for a counselor to come back through. But that's another area that there's little nuances. I know there's a new movement or a new trying to think of the word, in the State Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education, about focusing on homeless students and foster students. And so some of those regulations will be even more regulated, but also they're trying to promote more support for those students. So,
And I would suggest if you're working particularly with foster students or students who are wards of the court and they are going out of state, that you work with them to get documentation from their case manager prior to leaving so that they have that and they know the importance of taking it with them.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. But McKinney-Vento, I put a lot of kids on McKinney-Vento, basically so they could be an independent student when they filed the FAFSA.
And once in other places, the the financial aid office at that school, and sometimes that's hard for students to say, I'm for sure going to Idaho State University, and to build that relationship. But as soon as they kind of have an idea, that is what I tell them to do, is get into that financial aid office, start communicating with someone there to make sure that they know who they are, they know the resources, because sometimes the financial aid officers will be able to find other resources for them and do that professional judgment. That's on a screen up here. We've had we have lots of refugee students. So I had a student when I was in school 4 years ago. Her mom was in a refugee camp. The Boise State financial aid officer, bless her heart, she was like, "Okay, well, we need to fax this form to her." I'm like, "Okay, she's in a refugee camp." But Kathy Lacerda, it's been more than 4. She was there. Kathy Lacerda was there. Her aide, her refugee officer was there. We all wrote letters, and the financial aid officer was able to do that. But they have to have support,
And that's the other reason why helping students now to get the documentation they need, because they're more apt to be selected for something such as verification, and they're least able to communicate for themselves on what they need.
Right. And when you talk about doing the cheat sheet or prep sheet, it's really good to do it soon. One, the Social Security cards. Sometimes I haven't seen it. Some students know. Sometimes it's with mom and she's in a different state, and sometimes they want to change their name. Names are super important. If you get it right the first time, whatever's on the Social Security card is what they have to put. Even if they don't like that name or whatever the situation is, they need to put that down for now. And then I always tell them, later in your life, you'll be able to, once you get your financial aid, we'll be able to fix that. Hyphenated names, and then also the name of the parents. So we're going to talk about in a little bit. The financial aid award, this is just information about the letter, which is nowadays comes electronically. And we're calling it the package, the financial aid package. That's sometimes a concept that you can use too to convey to parents. It's a group of things collected together. And then verification. These are just another graphic that talks about kind of how the financial aid award will be packaged by the school. So based on their EFC, if they qualify for grants. And California has about 6 or 7 other things to put in here, so I had to take it out and put Idaho Opportunity for Private Scholarships. So, and then work study, outside scholarships and loans. And this is just kind of a graphic that gives you an idea of where they might be able to pull together. But like Kathy was saying, students don't realize that if you're going to a school that's extremely expensive, you might get offered $10,000 or $15,000 scholarships, but then you have to come up with another $10,000 or $15,000 scholarships, and from families that are making, $32,000 a year. That's really, really hard. So the earlier the better. And then this slide I like too, because it gives some ideas about what you could actually do to try and come up with the financial aid things. Some families have it. Most families may just be cutting it. And then, talking to students about getting 2 roommates or 1 roommate. Talking to them about their major. Is there going to be jobs? Where do you figure that out? You can go to the college career office. You can go on the, I know Idaho State BSU, they all have career center sites, and you can access that information to talk about demand. And then this is that professional judgment circumstances we were talking about. All these different things that can happen to students.
Another thing too we've seen is it's kind of, I don't know if it goes along with it, medical.
Right.
Huge medical if you have a family that's dealing with big medical bills or issues or something.
Allie, sorry, although that is a good one, I used to do these appeals.
those medical bills have to be huge
They
because
do.
they already have an income protection
Yes.
allowance, and so when they turn in
Right.
$2,000 worth of medical bills, which are huge,
Right.
it's still low.
No,
lower
yeah.
than
The
income
cases
protection
I've
allowance.
seen have been cancer,
Yeah.
so like leukemia from
Yeah.
2 to 10,
Perfect, yeah.
diabetes, and but yeah, we're talking.
They has to be made like I
significant,
guess I was thinking major medical, like like a cancer in
Yeah.
the family or.
And they have to have
something like
actually
that.
also
It
spent,
has to be paid.
paid. They have to have
Right.
paid
It
those
cannot be
bills. They
bills.
can't just
that's
say,
right. I owe them.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you may have a very high income family, but if there's a circumstance like that, that is something. And again, that's that relationship with the financial aid office, which is hard for students. This woman, our colleague that worked with them this summer, the other thing she did was spend a lot of time walking into financial aid offices with the students, or calling them on the phone and saying, "Hi, this is Julie Boo, and this is my social security number, and this is my student ID, and I need some help," because they weren't comfortable sometimes making even that first phone call. Even though we've been helping
They don't.
them. And then, let's see, okay. What do you need? And we talked about this, using their W-2s, using the estimation, bank records. You know, this is another circumstance where I've had families leave the financial aid night because they didn't know their savings account. And sometimes the savings account is only like, $900 or whatever. So sometimes I say to them, give us an estimation. Like, do you remember? And also I always tell them, we're not talking about after payday. We're talking about after you pay all your bills. So oftentimes, there's no money left after that. So sometimes you get them to put in an estimation on these things, and then they can go and double check on their tax forms. Whoops. And then this is the other new change, the FSA ID. Out in the field, the word on the street from our colleagues is that it's working fairly well. There is one thing that holds it up. The parents have to make one as well, and the parent and the student cannot use the same email. This morning, a counselor, I can't remember, it was in Meridian at Rocky Mountain, I think, she said she's had the situation where they've made a PIN with an email account, and it will not allow them to make an FSA ID with the same email. So that's something. I would definitely print this out and give it to all your seniors soon, because this is something. It's replacing the PIN. However, once they get through this process, it seems to be easier for students to retrieve, and there's fewer problems with the PIN, because if the parent had used the PIN for other family members or themselves, then they had to retrieve it. The other issue is the questions that the students pick as retrieval questions, so we always encourage them to pick something that's not going to change. Yeah.
So let me just make sure I'm clarifying.
Uh-huh.
So if a parent, maybe this is the second child that's gone through, if the parent has a PIN that's a prior PIN, now the parent's going to need to make a new, but they can't use the same email? Okay.
Or they can, but they need to call sometimes. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. Yeah, they need to call or chat with the Federal Financial Aid Office, and they'll reset it. I think it's the deal. I'm going to check on that some more, because I had not heard that. I had heard the problem was that the student sitting there doing the FAFSA and doesn't have the parent's FSA ID and doesn't have the parent email, so they don't know. And then to call the parent and have them come in and sign it. So the final step. But yeah, it's a good question.
So you may get to this, and I'm sorry if you were going to get to just skip
No,
this,
that's okay.
and we'll wait till you get to it. But when a student applies for FAFSA, and FAFSA is actually awarded, and some money is awarded, and is there a time frame? Is there a time frame now? Say that student goes to school for a semester or a year, and they stop going to school for 3 years, and then they come back to go to school. Is there a time issue to fill that bucket up and to use those resources?
There is a time issue as far, if they've taken on a loan, they have to be current on their loan payments, right? So that's one of the things we find is they've defaulted on a loan, and then they come back to school. And then a lot of the institutional, there is, I don't know, as far as, it depends on each individual university as to, usually I would say that they're not necessarily going to be re-awarded the same scholarships. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm just saying, is there a time frame for FAFSA to be, so if I come in as a freshman, and I start school as a freshman, and I use my FAFSA time for a year, then I just decide maybe I need to work for a little while, because I ran out of money, and then or maybe I just
Then
take
you
summer
decide at
classes
30 to come back.
and then I decide maybe
No, you're still
3
eligible
years
for FAFSA.
later.
Yeah.
Is there a time frame where it runs out? You're like,
No.
oh, you've used your 6 years up. You've used your
No, well, if you use 6 years of age
Yeah.
continuously, use that. But if you use a year, go work
Right.
for 10 years, and then you come back. Yes, you'll.
you still have 5.
No, you still have your life.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
It's
you can come back.
125% of the credits that's required for that degree.
Right.
So it's really credit based more than it is time based.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they redid the structure
Mhm.
of the eligibility for your
Mhm.
aid. So yeah, no, lots and lots of folks go back later.
So what do
and
you mean by
qualify.
the basic
So it's a
credit?
little bit, to be honest with you, this is where it comes in for high school kids. Dual credits, okay? So say a kid amasses 50 dual credits, okay, which would be a little bit difficult, but if they did, and then they go to college with 50 credits, okay, there can be a FAFSA problem because you get 125% of the credits.
You get, I'm sorry, you get 150.
50. Okay, 150.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's okay. And so, say a regular degree would be 128 for a bachelor's. Okay, so 50% more of that. Occasionally, especially if they change their degree a couple of times, they start getting into the big numbers on credits, and FAFSA will say you've hit your max. You're not going to be able to qualify anymore. So that's kind of a new guideline. About how long ago? 3 years ago or 4?
150% is always, it's been around for a very
Okay.
long time.
It
but
just
they
seems
put
like
the
3 or
50% cap on Pell,
Okay.
which is very new.
Because Pell
Okay.
used to be basically unlimited, and then they switched it to 6 years of full time, and now it's 150. Is that what
It's
they
like
did?
150%.
So weird. Can't keep track of
Because
it.
when you get Pell,
I
you
still
get
thought it was 6
50%
years.
fall, 50% in
Yeah.
the spring. So you can use 600%, which is 150% of a 4-year program traditionally. But you're not necessarily out of luck. You might have to appeal and then stay on an academic plan to complete a degree.
Right.
Sorry, not to.
And no, but will they always grant the appeal?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
You don't never want to say it's guaranteed. When I used to
Right.
do those appeals, there was some where I was like, sorry.
Yeah.
Do they count dual credit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Credits
in
are
fact.
still college credits that
And-
apply towards a college degree, so they need to be proactive on which classes they take as a dual credit student.
The
They're
good
still
news
college
about
credit.
the credits your students are taking is they're all gen ed credits for the most part, which any student getting a degree is going to need core requirements. So they can't really go right or wrong. It helps if they're doing, like, if they're going to do health professions, it'll help if they take biology too
Right.
to apply towards their degree. But I don't think your students really need to worry too much.
But like we have ag, okay, like equestrian and equine, not equestrian, equine. And so if you're not going into the ag field, maybe not a great idea to pay for those credits because that's probably not going to cover an elective credit, and you're not going to get anything for that, and then you risk. Advanced Opportunities just says be purposeful. Just be purposeful, kind of know what you're going after. Obviously, all the core, the math, the science. But, like maybe you don't need to pay for dual credit art if you're not going into an art credit. Maybe you do, but just be purposeful. Okay.
Yeah. And also, I was just going to say, the University of Idaho has a TRIO program for adults or for any kid who's out of college. Maybe they went for a year and went back. It's called the EOC program, and that's what they work with students on loans and financial aid. So it's EOC. They're out at CWI, and they're at the U of I Water Center, and they serve like 1,000 people. So if you have people, you should send them because that's their specialty, kind of, is working with people on financial aid and trying to figure out. So it's kind of like what we do, but for adults.
It's
so
free.
It's free. Yeah, it's federally funded.
And if you don't have a TRIO program, she will come out.
Right.
Holly will come, because she comes to CUNA, because we don't have TRIO. It's a good deal.
And then this little sheet's these are all federal forms on federal student aid. And so it just talks about who is my parent for non-traditional families, partner families, and it's really just a quick, who am I going to include? So if the parents remarried, they do include the step-parent. And then this is types of financial aid, and I have this handout down on the end of the table. You can order these for free.
Which one?
I like to have the bigger one. Maybe there's none left from this morning.
that
those.
one.
I like to have that available right at the financial aid time because they will get an initial, like I qualify for a Pell Grant or I don't qualify for a Pell Grant, totally based on what they put in there. But it's because you're like, okay, well here's this information from the government. It kind of eases the transition a little bit from what they think they're going to qualify for to what they're really going to qualify for. I always temper it with, this is based on what you put in here tonight, right? Because if they go home and they put in something totally different, or Dad forgot to tell them, hey, I cashed out my 401k this year. Don't cash out 401ks. And then this scorecard is awesome too. You can put in different schools that the student can, and it compares. This is kind of very helpful with the for-profit institutions, figuring out that a degree at a for-profit is going to cost you $25,000, and you can go to CWI and it's going to cost you $10,000. Again, it's on them, not on you, saying, Mr. Rupp told me that that's bad, and it's like, no, Mr. Rupp didn't tell you that's bad. Let's look at the scorecard and show you. Also has some information on who's graduating and their graduation rates. And then this Next Steps Idaho, you guys are all familiar with, I hope. It's a wonderful new resource. And this is that student aid. If you find yourself in a little, I'm not quite clear on the subsidized and unsubsidized, there's tutorials on there. I love this student aid site. The government's really done a much better job the last 5-6 years of producing better materials and more clear options. And then the CWI deal, this is the ideal match there. I just put that on there because I think for a lot of our students that's an option. Even if they're not going to CWI, for middle income families, this is something to consider as far as tax savings and upper. And that is it. That's kind of very quick places that you can ask. You can call us. You can. This is the college options people, and then my number's on here. You're welcome to call me, and if I don't know the answer, I can direct you to someone who does, usually, or call somebody and we can figure it out. I'd say use the financial aid office at the school, and use that number to call federal financial aid, and the chat works really well. And the kids are used to chat, so they're better at it than we are. So now we are going to have Joy Miller come and talk about the Idaho Opportunities and Idaho State Scholarships, which are awesome.
Did you say that we could order these through the state, or do we have to do it through the federal?
Through the federal. Yeah, and those, sometimes the government's behind a year or 2 or 6 months. They're still good. So I always just tell the families the amounts may change a little bit, but yeah, you can order them in English and in Spanish. And you can go online too, and sometimes you have to create an account if you're not sure where to track it down at your school, but yeah, and those are free. I mean, they send them to you, and we pass out lots and lots of free things. So. There you go.
I'm not going to take too much more of your time.
Oh no, that's why. That's what the design is, because we're all in this together. It's not a. Oh, we're all just working, doing the best we can. Oh, you want to pull up your site?
I don't know, do we?
Yeah, well, introduce yourself and then I'll pull you up there. Because we're recording this time. Did you know that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Last time we were supposed to be, but we didn't. So, yeah.
So yeah, I'm Joy Miller. I've been with the State Board of Education since July 14. Before that, I worked in financial aid since 05. So that's why I was. So I'm just going to go over 2 of our scholarship programs that high school students are eligible for. The first one, I'm sure you've all heard of it. I'm not sure, Idaho Opportunity Scholarship. Hopefully, yeah, thank you. It's up to $3,000 per year, and that up to, those 2 little tiny words that have just so much meaning, because it is a last dollar award. So we have a state mandated cost of attendance, and if students get aid up to that state mandated cost of attendance and there's no room left, opportunity is 0. But they are given renewal consideration because their situation can change from year to year, so they can renew a 0 amount and be considered for next year, because you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
It is, what?
Oh no, I'm just agreeing wholeheartedly.
Okay. All right, so it does require a 3.0 unweighted GPA. We had a little bit of that last year where they were putting in 4.2s. It is an unweighted GPA, and we do ask counselors to verify this. So we have actually had GPAs where they put in 3.0, but counselor comes back and says it's a 2.2, and I'm like, no. So, we also have colleges verify this as well. So the award is not final until, it's almost like a mortgage loan. It's not final until it's been dispersed, because it does get verified at several points along the way. It is need-based, so it's based on a formula that's based on 70% need, which we use the EFC from the FAFSA, and 30% merit. So it's basically, we just run the numbers through a formula, rank them, and start awarding until we run out of money. So, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. It's not like Governor's Cup. The FAFSA is due March 1st, not March 2nd, not April 3rd, March 1st. That is in statute. So parents and students can estimate, because their initial application just has to be in by March 1st, not corrected, absolutely perfect application in by March 1st. So they can go back in and make corrections, and we're okay with that. They must attend the first semester after applying. I know some scholarships will hold their awards so they can go on a mission or whatever. You have to attend the first semester. After you attend fall and you want to go on a leave of absence, go, be free, but you do have to attend the first semester. They have to be pursuing their first undergraduate degree. I know from CWI that we have some dual credit students who earn an associate's degree and earn a high school degree all at the same time. If they want to get a second associate's, that won't work for opportunity. They can go and get a bachelor's, but they can't be getting 2 associates and 3 bachelors. No. We will pay for an associate's as on the progression to a bachelor's, but not, I've seen students get 3 associate's degrees and go on and plan to get 2 bachelor's degrees, and I'm like, this is what we're paying for. They must be Idaho residents and attend graduating from an Idaho high school or earning an Idaho GED. I know there are some border areas where they're maybe not living in Idaho, but we are aware of those areas and we work with them. I don't know what else to say about that. The application's up. It's ready to go. It just has to be in by March 1st. And I do get usually about March 2nd and 3rd, but I forgot. I didn't.
Sorry.
Same with renewals, March 1st. She was, okay.
Mine is real quick. If it's the first semester that they can attend, if they want to attend summer school, can they use it for that? Because I have kids that go on a mission. They'll go to summer school and then go on a mission. That if they attend that summer school, it doesn't count.
No.
Because it's for an academic year. So right now we're accepting applications for the 2016-17 academic year. Summer is 2015-16.
Okay. And do they need to reapply every year?
They do.
Well, they renew.
They need to actively renew and then actively accept. And the reason why I have them do this is because, I mean, it's in statute or rule, I can't remember which one, they do have to renew every year. But I also want them to accept it. I want them to accept that they understand what the terms of the award are, that they have to attend 12 credits each semester, or complete 24 if you're at a university, 18 credits if you're at a community college.
Scroll
that you
down.
understand the GPA. You know, so I want them to say that I understand. And so when they say I didn't know, or I didn't, like, yeah, you did. Because you said it right here. I mean, I'm not trying to do that to be harsh or whatever, but I'm just, this is it. This is, you know, and there is a statute that governs the scholarship. There are rules that govern it, and you need to understand what they
And
are.
you said 18 is full-time?
No, back up again to
university.
Well, 18 for the year at a community college, so 9 each semester.
But where's the link
They have
to-
to register for 9.
To reapply.
At 4-year schools have to register for 12. If something happens in the fall and they can't complete, they can make it up in the spring because they have to complete 18
In the year.
in the year,
He's
and
on
24,
this page.
and 24 at the university.
See right there.
But they have to
And
initially
then
be
it's
registered
also
in the required number of credits or it won't disperse.
The other scholarship.
So
which is governor's.
it kind of helps, like, gives them like the spring to make up any stuff in the fall. And sometimes we give them the summer as well. Like, I didn't complete, like, you know, and I'm like,
Right.
you know, but those situations are very few where they have to use the summer. So,
Do you wait until graduation to verify GPAs?
no, it's GPA at the time of application.
So, okay,
So when the
if they're
counselors are
sitting
going
at a
to-
2.95,
They can apply after they bring
even
their
though they're gonna
GPA
graduate
from
with
college.
more than a 3.0, that's not gonna help them.
So they can apply again after they've gone to a semester of college if they keep a GPA in
Yeah.
college.
And it's their cumulative unweighted that you want on the
Yes,
application.
absolutely. Cumulative unweighted.
That's why they get confused because they look at their current GPA and say, "Oh, I have a 3.0 right now, today." You know.
Well, but is it the weighted or?
No, it's just that they're in the moment snapshot.
Well, in the moment, it is the GPA at the time they apply. Now, you guys might, by the time you go and verify, you might have their first
changes
semester.
every day. Their GPA changes every day.
Oh, because you're factoring in the assign. Oh, okay.
Yeah, their
And
current.
that's what she's talking about.
Well, we're not going to go out there and slap them around.
But the student is going to have it verified by the school.
Yes.
Someone's current GPA could be 4.0 and
Right,
their
I
cumulative
understand.
GPA could be 2.5.
Right, I understand.
So you want their cumulative GPA
Cumulative,
is everything
unweighted.
up
Yeah, and then
until.
in the help text on there, if they hover, they'll see, if you have any questions or concerns, you should ask your high school counselor if
Right.
you're not exactly sure, because it will be verified.
Right.
And so, but high school counselors verify the GPA before we make any offers, so it's not like we're making offers out there based on what students tell us, and then we go oops to about 100 of them. We make sure till the high counselors are done verifying, and then we have students come, why didn't I get an award? I'm like, well, your counselor verified your GPA to be,
Yeah, they just make mistakes.
And I just been a little while because you do it once a year, so remembering, okay, back. So students are applying right now, they're using their transcript GPA for the 6 semester credits, or 6 semesters that they've, some will maybe apply in last minute in February, getting closer to March, so they'll now have 7 semester. Does it matter?
well, no, because then the counselor's gonna verify
Yeah.
it anyway.
And
So
most of the time,
it's gonna be an assistant.
right, and most of the time you guys are waiting until their 7 semester grades are.
I just wanted to make sure that.
From what I understand in the past, his counselor site didn't open until after the process was closed, but I mean, we open it now.
It's
But
open.
I mean, I understand if they wanna wait till after the fall, but at least counselors can start in January, February to do it instead of like, oh, I gotta do all 500 of my students right now.
Well,
They can go
in the larger schools, you're going to want to
Yeah.
stay on top of it.
So.
And I just want to put a issue in, because of the fluctuations and everything else, this is one of the easiest scholarships to apply for. And for the students that we're really trying to serve, it can really make that difference. So anytime you can plug completing the scholarship, now Joy may not want all the ones, but we want them to know what the conditions and terms are, but I would rather someone who's on the cusp fill it out and then be denied versus not having filled it out. And the other thing, in light of the earlier part of this training, anytime you can use this to your advantage, for example, if you're having a parent night, make sure they know about the Opportunity Scholarship. That's something tangible they can do while they're sitting. The student can do, the parent can't, but the student can do it if they come to that family night before they leave. And then you have another little hold over them to finish the FAFSA. So.
Can I ask about selection? Like I know you get way more applicants than we have money to provide, so just to give a realistic, description to our students about what they're. Are we basing it on that's going to go to the higher GPAs first? Are we basing it
Well,
on?
it's based on that formula, 70% need, 30% merit. So when you plug in the formula and put in the numbers, you could have somebody with a lower GPA but a very low EFC get it over somebody with a 4.0 but maybe a little.
So
it's all how
70%.
70%
need, 30% merit, based on the EFC. So it's difficult to tell because the year before last, a lot of students were awarded. This past year, it was very competitive. And just because you apply doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Right.
It is an application. You do have to be selected. You may not.
We've had a year, I think, at least, where everyone that applied got it.
Or everyone that was eligible.
Yeah, everyone that applied that was eligible got it. But again, it's such a, if
so
you don't
easy.
apply, you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I know that some people try to target specific populations, but I really don't want that because, like Dana said, you don't know what everybody else is going to look like. You can have all these people with
Right.
300,000 EFCs apply.
Right.
This person with a 3,000 EFC might get it. So it's just like when you apply for a job that you may not you don't know what the other applicants look like. You may be the best darn one out there. And maybe you just barely meet the requirements.
And it's like the same thing with every year being unique. So if they don't get it one year, but they're doing well in college, they should think about applying in the next cycle because everything could change. Both their own circumstances and our pool of applicants
like I have a kid that just came back and saw me, and I think he's like 24. And he went to college, he has left college, and he came in to ask me about scholarshiping opportunities. And so is this something at that point that he can apply for?
So what he can do, if he graduated from an Idaho high school, wants to go to an Idaho college, that's cool. So, and as long as his most recent GPA is at least a 3.0, so if he went to college, earned a 3.0.
Okay, so that point.
Yeah, because we're going to look at most recent. So if their high school maybe wasn't so great, but they went to college and busted out a 4.0, yeah, fine.
And I just want to throw in a quick little thing, which Joy might be bringing up, but, you know, we were talking about the advanced opportunities and stuff. The kids should know that those credits could factor in when they get to their institution. And so, you know, they just should realize, because if we see kids that take classes,
a college course, do your very best.
Do your very, very best, because those are going to get factored in.
So when I worked at CWI, when I was in financial aid, I was we would see dual credit students who I guess didn't take dual credit seriously, maybe didn't think it was real, and then started school having to complete satisfactory academic progress appeals because they did not have the GPA. They did not do well, and they were like, "Oh, those were real classes," and I'm like,
That's so true.
So, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh gosh, are you kidding me? You're not even 18, and you're already having to appeal." And some schools limit appeals where you can only do 3 the entire time you're there. And you've already had to use one, and you're not even in school yet, or officially a full-time college student yet. So that is what dual credit is. That I mean, I think a lot of students do take it seriously. I have seen those ones that graduate with associate's degrees. That's awesome. It's amazing. But then I have taught the ones in my class who never go, never show up. They're ending up with a 0 GPA even before they begin a full-time college career. So the other scholarship I want to talk about, and I know we're getting, and you guys are tired, it's all anything, but we do have an Idaho Governor's Cup scholarship that I do want to put out there. This is actually pretty awesome. Not that opportunity isn't, opportunity is amazing, but Governor's Cup is awesome in that it is $3,000 a year. Not last dollar, not up to, it's $3,000 a year for 4 years. You do have to be a resident of Idaho, you do have to be graduating senior of an Idaho high school, and you have to enroll full-time in an academic or technical program. And this is 12 credits each semester. This one you do have to be full-time no matter where you are. And you do have to submit ACT or SAT if you're going into an academic program. Your GPA has to be at least a 2.8. I believe that is the unweighted also for, And then the only other, and you do have to attend the first semester after graduation. The only other thing is this is for those students who really, and I know you have them, really taken off with the volunteer and leadership experience. Like they really, like I've seen these applications and these students make me feel awful.
Yeah,
because they've done more for the 17 than I've done in my entire life. And it's just, I mean, they just list, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I did nothing in high school. I was awful. I do nothing now. I'm ridiculous. And so it's for those students who maybe necessarily don't have a perfect 4.0, but what they really are looking for is those students who put in the time and effort to better their school, better themselves, and better their community. And they also, it's a strong emphasis on the essay as well. And when I spoke to the former director of the program, she's like, we're not looking for those essays where they kind of just summarize what they've done or whatever. They're really looking for something, you know, that's going to grab them, something well written, something interesting. And so that, and they choose, I think the first year I was here, right before I got here, they chose about 25. Last year was about 33. And it's a great award. They have a ceremony in the Capitol building. It's really awesome. And I mean, and this one's a little bit more subjective than opportunity. Opportunity is just the numbers. This one, they really are reading over those essays. They are looking at how much they've really put into their community and their schools and what they've done. So it's a lot more subjective. They have a committee they work with, and it's really a really cool award. And I know more goes into it, but it can be worth it. It's kind of like, okay, if I put 10 hours into this or 5 hours into this, but I get $12,000 back over the course of 4 years, how much is that per hour? You know, that's the one I always use with my students, and you see this little light going, oh. I'm like, yeah, you should apply for more scholarships. So the last thoughts, as far as opportunity at least, we use email to communicate. That's just, it's convenient, it's fast, most students know how to use it, they need to learn how to use it. The only thing that we do see is they use a high school sponsored email, and then once they graduate, some schools yank that. And then we have notes. So we got to encourage students to maybe create a Gmail account, an appropriate Gmail account. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't have to say it. We see lots. Or something they can use for, communicating with professors, communicating with school staff at their college, looking for a job one day, an email that they can really carry with them. And I know it's interesting to have these fun email addresses, but let's think about, I've had the same email address for the last 14 years because it's just straight up my name. It's boring, it's not really interesting or funny, but it's also not questioned by employers or anybody when I go to give it either. And then some of our emails can go to junk or spam. They should get it in the habit sort of checking that and then marking us as safe for whatever your email provider does. But they really need to get into the habit of using an email outside of their school email and looking for our scholarships, because a lot of times, if you get a bill to your email, it goes to your junk, and you're like, well, I didn't get it. Your power company doesn't care. No. It's your responsibility to do this. So that's kind of where I come from, is I like to teach them how to be when they're older, and part of that is you need to do this, you need to take care of this, and part of that is creating an appropriate email, checking junk, marking things, checking email. So I realize I sound like such a hard-nosed for you. I am thinking of the students and teaching them to be the best they can. So the FAFSA is, again, I cannot stress that enough. It's due March 1st. I mean, our renewal students think that didn't apply to them, and we had several renewal students that just...
And the renewal goes to their email that they applied with, right?
Exactly, which is why they should not use their parents. It's time to cut the apron string.
When we made an offer to students, we also asked them again, what's your email? So they had a second chance to create a Gmail or use maybe even their university email, for, just so that so we were able to import those and catch some of those that use their school district email. And so if you have any other questions, I know in your toolkit, Abby and my information is on there. You can feel free to contact us anytime. We may not always be here, especially if you get a 1 a.m. question, but as soon as we can.
At 9 a.m. you'll get to it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for all your work, and thank you guys for coming. We know it was an extra
if you can
trip.
fill out your survey, thank you.
And we will get
TVEP would like to get
pages
that
corrected.
Yes,
This
we
is
will.
our first go around, so
we'll get the page
feel
numbers
free to share the
corrected.
information, and we'll also put it in Word so that you can customize it to your school, whatever you need to. Send it to parents.
Thanks very much.
Oh yeah, thank you guys.
Hi, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
Dana.